This morning, you picked out an outfit without thinking twice. A shirt, some pants, maybe a jacket if it was cold. It felt automatic, almost invisible. But the real answer to why you did that is far stranger than you think. Your body used to be covered in thick hair. Then, somewhere in your evolutionary past, you lost almost all of it. Why would a species living in the open, exposed to sun and cold, give up its natural coat? That question puzzled scientists for decades. The answer starts with sweat. Around 2 million years ago, your ancestors began hunting during the hottest hours of the day. Thick fur traps heat. Bare skin covered in sweat glands releases it. Losing your hair let your ancestors run down prey across long, brutal distances. It was a trade. You gave up warmth for endurance. But that trade created a new problem. Without fur, nights became dangerous. Cold could kill. So your ancestors needed something to replace what evolution had taken away. They needed clothing. Here is where it gets strange. Skin and bone rarely survive long enough to tell us when clothing began. So how do scientists figure out something invisible in the fossil record? They looked at lice. In 2003, biologist Mark Stoneking and his colleague Ralph Kittler compared the DNA of two kinds of human lice. One lives in head hair, the other lives only in clothing. By measuring how long ago these two lice split into separate species, they could estimate when humans started wearing enough clothing for a new habitat to exist. Their answer was around 170,000 years ago. That number matters. It means clothing appeared long before humans left Africa for colder climates. Your ancestors were not just covering themselves, something else was happening. Around that same period, the world was sliding into an ice age. Archaeologist Ian Gilligan has argued that clothing was not just a single invention, but a response to climate stress, appearing and disappearing as temperatures rose and fell. When the world grew cold, clothing became a technology for survival, not just modesty. Early garments were likely simple, draped hides, wrapped fibers, nothing sewn, nothing tailored. Then, tens of thousands of years later, something changed again. Archaeologists found bone needles with tiny-eyed holes, dating back around 40,000 years. Anthropologist Olga Soffers studied these needles and noticed something important. They were not just for wrapping fabric around a body, they were for fitting it, for tailoring. This shift mattered because tailored clothing traps warmth far more effectively than draped fur ever could. Notice what happened here. Clothing didn't just protect the body, it let humans move into places their bodies were never built for. The Arctic, high mountains, frozen tundra. Without natural fur, without built-in insulation, humans wore their way into environments no other primate could survive. But clothing did something else too. Once tailoring existed, choices existed. A hood could be shaped one way or another. A hide could be dyed, decorated, marked with color or pattern. Suddenly, what you wore said something about who you were. Archaeological sites reveal ornaments sewn directly into clothing, beads placed in patterns too deliberate to be accidental. This wasn't just about staying warm anymore. It was about status, identity, belonging to one group and not another. Think about that for a moment. The moment clothing became optional in design, not just function, it became a language, and that language never stopped evolving. Different cultures took this in wildly different directions. Some wrapped bodies in layered furs against Arctic winds, others wove light plant fibers to survive desert heat. Same problem, solved in different ways depending on where humans ended up. Why would that matter? Because clothing was never one invention. It was thousands of separate solutions, all answering the same ancient riddle of a hairless body in a hostile world. Fast forward to today, and the outfit you picked out this morning carries the same ancient logic. You didn't just dress for temperature, you dressed for how you wanted to be seen. A sharp blazer for a job interview, worn sneakers for comfort, a specific color because it feels like you. None of that is separate from survival. It's the same instinct dressed in a modern shape. Even now, you probably don't think about lice DNA or Ice Age archaeologists when you get dressed. You just reach for what feels right. But underneath that simple choice sits 2 million years of losing fur, chasing prey, surviving frozen nights, and learning that fabric could say what words sometimes can't. So the next time you get dressed without thinking twice, remember what's really happening. You're not just covering your skin, you're carrying forward one of the oldest survival technologies your species ever built, and quietly telling the world who you are while you do it.